Hello everyone, just popping by today with some news of quite an exciting new development which I'll talk about in a moment. This is to do with my daily stitching practice, for which many of you have purchased the templates which have the pattern to transfer to your fabric and some little stitching notes as well. So with the templates you transfer the design to the fabric yourself using the templates, and people often ask me, can they buy pre-printed fabric with the templates actually printed on? And until now the answer has always been no, because I don't know how to do that, but now there is a way. I've worked out a way of uploading the template files to a couple of print-on-demand shops, so you can now actually order printed daily stitching fabric directly from my Spoonflower shop and from my Woven Monkey shop. Now, Spoonflower is based in the USA, so that's a good option if you're in America, and Woven Monkey is based in the UK, so they're a good option if you live here in the UK. So the way this works is probably the easiest way for you to go about it is to go to my blog, stitchinglife.uk, and in the pages section along the top here, you'll see a page called Buy Printed Fabric for Daily Stitching. So if we tap on that, you get all the information here, which hopefully you'll read all of that. You may also need the templates as well, because when you purchase the printed fabric, you literally get printed fabric. You don't get any instructions. None of the squares are labelled, for example. I mean, you could just make it up. You don't necessarily need the templates as well, but the templates do have some quite useful stitching notes and things like that on. So these are briefly what the fabrics will look like. It is quite faint, but if you enlarge it, you can just about see what they are. What I will say is that buying it this way means that you get a square. So your daily stitching will be in a square format. It just about fits on a square yard of fabric. So what you lose this way is that you can't have a long strip of fabric, like for example this, where I've used the 2025 templates end to end, so I've ended up with a long strip rather than a big square. For 2026 I am using the big square format, so I will be completing this one in 2026. So just something to bear in mind. You know, if you think you're going to find wrestling with a yard square a bit unwieldy, then you know, you might want to carry on doing it your own way with the templates. Mostly the squares are arranged like this, so you kind of go back and forth along the square. But if you come down to here, you'll have there are links for the two shops. So if we go to Spoonflower first, that's probably the best known. So this is my Spoonflower shop. You will have to, if you're watching this in the future, there may well be more designs here because I add to this all the time. But if you want to find them, if you want to find the templates quickly, you can come down to this section here where it says Designed Collections, and you get daily stitching templates all together in a collection. So just go to the collection and that will show you the 5 options. So what you do is pick the template that you want, and I think you're going to have to go into each one to see which year they are. I've labelled them all with years, but they all have 365 blocks, so you can use any template in any year. This is the one that I used in 2022, for example. So let's pick the 2026 one, if we can find it. That's that one. So that takes you to the fabric page. What you need to do here is change the fabric, and you get a whole range of fabrics that you can have it printed on. I'll talk about fabrics in a moment because I'm going to show you a few, but I would suggest the Petal Signature Cotton is this, and it's pretty much like quilter's cotton. So it is quite thin, and I've got a sample of it, which I'll show you in a moment. But what you could do with the signature cotton is treat it like a quilt. So you could actually layer it with quilt batting and put a backing on it, and actually treat it, you know, make a quilt top out of it. If you do that, I would suggest washing the fabric first, because it will shrink. In fact, it's good practice to wash any of the fabrics first, just in case, because what you don't want is to wash it in the future and for the fabric to shrink and the stitches not. So wash it first. My preferred option here is the linen cotton canvas, which is this one. Linen cotton canvas, you can see it there. It's 45% linen, 55% cotton. But if I just take a couple of stitches on it, it's really nice to stitch. It's got a really nice hand. It's a natural fibre, and that would be a pleasure to work with, I would think, for a year. So that would be the one I would recommend. So you choose your linen cotton canvas, choose a yard, and away you go. Then you just add that to your basket and away you go. If we just come back a bit and go to the other one, if we go to the Woven Monkey shop, that's very similar, but this one is based in the UK. So if you're in the UK, the postage is going to be a lot cheaper. And again, same things. And again, if you're looking at this in the future, there may well be other designs here. Woven Monkey doesn't give you an option currently to put things in a collection, so you might just have to hunt around for it. But again, it's exactly the same thing. You pick the design you want, and then you choose the fabric that you want it on. And choose change the size here. So you want to have it on a metre. They don't do yards, I don't think. And then that's how it'll print. Except we don't want cotton. I would suggest something like cotton drill. But I've got some samples and I'll show you in a moment how that will work. So that's how you purchase it. Now, if you're as fussy as I am about fabric, you might want to have a look at them all first. So on Woven Monkey, you can actually get a set of samples. So you get a sample pack here for £2.75, and that contains little samples of all their current fabrics. So what that means is they come like this. So you get lots of little swatches of fabric, so that you can have a feel of them and you can decide for yourself whether it's going to be nice to stitch on. So they have a few options which I've gathered together here. We'll look at those in a moment. Now, Spoonflower used to do swatches as well. I can't easily find anywhere on the website that lets you purchase them. I can only find options to purchase an 8-inch square swatch, which you could do if you were that bothered about it. I would suggest with Spoonflower sticking to the linen cotton canvas. You might think, for example, when you look through the list of fabrics, that Belgian linen might be nice, but when you actually look at it, the weave is very, very loose. And I think that would be a little bit too unstable to stitch on, personally. So I would recommend sticking with the linen cotton canvas, which is that one. Linen cotton canvas. Just because it's a nice surface to stitch on. It feels very similar to vintage linen, in my view. So let's have a look at some of the options that you've got with, these are Woven Monkey samples. So these are the ones that you get from the UK. Let me start at the beginning because I've got them in the wrong order here. So this is basic cotton. And when I first got that, I thought, well, that's far too thin, because you can virtually see through it. I don't know if you can see it on the camera, but you can see the other side through the front. It doesn't take much, but actually it is fine. It's nice. It's quite nice to stitch on. I'm using the same thread for all these little sample stitches here. It's one of my hand-dyed Silk Pearl 12 threads, and I happen to be using a Clover Gold Eye Quilting Needle number 8. This is very rare. I hardly ever know what kind of needle I'm using. I just grab a needle and start sewing, but I'm using the same needle and the same thread on each of these samples, and you can see it's really easy to stitch. Now, what I thought you could do with this, because it's thinnish cotton, and particularly the Spoonflower petal quilting cotton, I think that's called, petal soft cotton, I think it might be called, petal signature cotton. There we go. That's the this very soft one. It's a lovely cotton actually. It's really nice quilter's cotton. But this and that would work quite well, possibly as a quilt top. So if you layered, for example, some batting under it and a backing, keeping it all very lightweight, pin that together. Obviously you baste it very carefully, but then you could probably treat it as a quilt. You could quilt stitch through all layers, and I think that would make for quite an interesting year-long project. Again, you'd need to wash it first, wash everything first, the backing and the fabric, and make sure you're using colour-fast threads. But I mean, you can see it's quite nice to stitch on, even without the backing and the batting. If you're stitching on just one layer, you're going to have to be really careful not to distort it, you have to be careful with your tension, because if you're not using a hoop or frame, as I don't, it is quite easy to pull too tight and pucker it a bit. So just be careful with the tension, but quite nice to stitch on. Right, next option is the Woven Monkey Cotton Drill. I've actually got 2 samples of these. Again, same thread, same needle, and again, very nice to stitch on. Let's do this one first. I'll tell you why in a moment. Started in the wrong place there. So you can see this is cotton drill, so you can see it's got this very characteristic diagonal line in it on the surface. That's just what cotton drill does, a bit like denim. But again, you can see it's quite sturdy, it's quite nice to stitch on. It's sturdy but not stiff, and that would be a really nice surface as well. And you can see I've just done a few samples on these little swatches, and all I've done is couched a decorative yarn just to cover the outline. So couching is just, if I can just come up here very quickly, you're just couching it down over the outline, and that just hides the lines. Really easy. If you haven't got decorative yarn, you can use any other yarn really. You can often find decorative yarns very cheaply in charity shops as oddments. If you're a knitter or a crochet, or you do crochet, you can use yarn oddments. You can use a thick thread, whatever you can find really, or you could just back stitch along these lines. Now, this is also a cotton drill, but actually what I found is I prefer the other side. So this is another piece of cotton drill, but the other side, and again, I don't know if you can tell on the camera, but the other side is much smoother, and I prefer it. So you can just about see the lines through from the other, it's printed on that side, but you can just about see the lines, enough to just draw them in. So draw them in with a pen, and then you can use the other side if you prefer it. And it all comes down to what you like the look of. but again, it's exactly the same. It's the same fabric. It doesn't matter whether you stitch from the front or the back, just the same. Okay, so that is Cotton Drill. That's from Woven Monkey. That's the UK version. Now this one is called Faux Linen, F-A-U-X linen, and this one is synthetic. It isn't, definitely isn't linen. It does kind of look and feel a bit like linen, but it does also feel synthetic. And this is why I would suggest getting swatches first, because you can have a good feel of it, and you can, you know, see what it's going to be like to handle it. That one's cotton linen. That, again, that is quite a loose weave, I think. I'm trying to find the... Oh, it'll be in here with the synthetics, I bet. Yeah, there's the faux linen. And I mean, it feels surprisingly nice. It's quite nice quality for a synthetic fabric. It is quite nice quality. And again, it's nice to stitch on. So, you know, it's quite easy. You can see it's the needles passing in and out of there quite well. It's quite sturdy. You're not particularly worried about the tension on it. It's very nice. I'm pleasantly surprised. I wouldn't normally choose a synthetic fabric to stitch on, but like I say, I'm pleasantly surprised. So that's the faux linen. And then finally, I've got a sample of soft canvas, which is also synthetic. It's slightly lighter weight than this one. This one's quite heavy. It's a bit like a furnishing fabric, the faux linen. The soft canvas is a little bit lighter. It's a bit more like possibly like a tablecloth fabric, something like that. But again, it's very nice to stitch on. Quite easy to handle. It stays nicely flat, doesn't crease very much. What I will say is whatever fabric you get, you're going to have to hem it, because it frays, all of it frays quite badly. So all you would do there is just turn those edges under and just do a little running stitch around the edge before you start, really. Obviously do it in a smaller stitches and a coordinating thread colour, unless you want it to be a feature, but you know, just stitch your hems under just to prevent additional fraying. So there we are. There are just some options that you could have a look at, and that's how to go about ordering pre-printed fabric, which saves you the trouble of having to get the templates onto the fabric yourself. Hope that is useful.